Hello, this is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, the founder of the highest paid part-time job in the world. And if you're an options trader, you're somebody that desires to be an options trader, you're somebody in the options market and you're not having the success that you desire, this is going to be a really, really good video for you because this is going to really speak to something that you're probably either currently experiencing or you've experienced in the past and you haven't been able to quite figure out how to be successful in managing this issue. And let me go ahead and set it up. So let me kind of explain to you how this normally rolls out for most people in this particular space. What happens is they're trying to get involved in options. And so they maybe buy a course, they maybe get some instruction, they maybe get some coaching, and they're not having the success that they desire. They're losing more money than they're gaining. They're maybe probably kind of confused as to how to be successful. They really don't have a pathway or a framework of how to be successful. They just have a lot of information. You know, that's not the same thing. Having a pathway or a framework or a structure that you believe will lead to success is not the same as just having a bunch of information about a particular topic. But that's, primarily what they purchase. They purchase a traditional school-based curriculum around trading. And so they're trying to implement this curriculum without any real implementation instructions, and then they're not successful. And then what they do is they go back on the search for more information, right? Which is predictable because of how they've been indoctrinated, how they've been socially conditioned. So they look for more information, right, as a solution to why they're not successful. And then they hear about things like selling calls, what we call spreads. So you got all kinds of different spreads. There's a million different kinds of spreads, right? Iron, butterflies, iron condors, bull credit spreads, chimpanzee spreads, orangutan spreads. You got a million different names, right, for how you want to structure these very, very complex option strategies in which you simultaneously buy options contracts and sell options contracts at the same time. And, as a way in which trying to hedge your risk that you believe that the probability of success is going to be a lot more successful, right? You believe you have a higher probability of success. And the reason why people go down this rabbit hole is because they're not having success and they can't figure out why they're not having success. So what they do is they try to figure out, well, am I missing out on information about why I'm not having success? And then they run into these guys that tell them things like, well, 90% of calls expire worthless. I'm sorry, 9% of options expire worthless, which is untrue. I learned that from a guy named Lawrence McMillan. He probably wrote the Bible on the options market, and he kind of explained that this fallacy or this belief, right, that 90% of options expire worthless is a belief, which means that it's really not based in the truth. It's just based in what is going on inside people's heads. There's really no data to really support that. And so they hear about, well, here's a way to make predictable income. We're going to start selling contracts as opposed to buying them and then selling them at a later date. We're going to be the market maker. We're going to essentially sell them. And this is how we create predictable income. The question I want to ask you is that, how do you create predictable income in a market that you don't control? That's the first thing. So if the income is, you don't control the market. You don't control the stock market. You don't control the world markets. You don't control the financial markets. But you're selling an equity. You're selling contracts that you're selling contracts that are derivative of an equity in that particular market, but you don't control the market. So then how is the income going to be predictable? So you got to ask yourself these type of questions when people are telling you these things to appeal to your lack of success in a particular area. And you desire that success where you're pretty much now willing to jump on anything that you believe is going to be a life preserver to that success. So they listen to these type of marketing messages about these very, very complex option strategies. And many of them buy those courses and they try to implement those strategies and they're still not successful. And here's the reason why. Before most people come into the market, before they ever come into the market, they're living their normal life. They're doing what they're doing. And part of this socialization and part of their indoctrination is that when something goes wrong in their life, to believe that it's because of an external reason. So they already believe this. So in America, you get taught that if you don't like your life, it's the politician's fault. If you don't like your life, it's a black person's fault. If you don't like your life, it's a white person's fault. If you don't like your life, it's a woman's fault. If you don't like your life, it's a man's fault. If you don't like your life, it's the fact that Mexicans are coming across the border. If you don't like your life, it's the fact that the Chinese are becoming a world superpower. If you don't like your life, it's because of the reptilians that live underneath the earth. If you don't like your life, it's because of the Bilderberg Group and the Illuminati. And you're taught all these external reasons around why your life isn't going the way you want it to go. So you already have this belief system operating inside your head before you ever come into the market. So you come into the market with this belief system that's you already operating under, okay? And you learn about options trading. And you never really learn the fundamentals. You don't get really good in the fundamentals, which are naked calls, naked puts. That's the fundamental principles of the options market. Naked calls, naked puts. You don't really understand that. You also don't really understand the market. So you don't understand what moves share price. You also don't understand the overall market, right? So what is going on in the market from a fundamentals standpoint that can affect or effect the technicals on the chart. You don't have any of these understandings, right? Then you don't have a really good understanding of your own personal psychology and how you should trade based on your personality. So you have a lot of internal challenges going on, but based on your conditioning, based on your socialization, when you don't get the success that you desire, what do? You go right back into the same pattern you've been operating on your whole life. There has to be an external reason why I'm not successful. Well, what's that external reason? I don't have enough information. The hell with the fact that I'm not successful because I lack discipline or I lack self-control or I don't have a proper understanding. Not information is not the same thing as understanding. I don't have the correct understanding. I haven't really sat back and sought to get an understanding of this space, not information. You can have a lot of information with no comprehension of the information. But because of your socialization and because you're just like most Americans, you believe your problem is external, and therefore the solution to your problem is also external because you believe that your problem lies outside of you. Therefore, the solution to your problem lies outside of you. So now what do? You just follow out that pattern, right? And so this is why most people who are unsuccessful in the options market with the fundamentals, which is going to be naked calls, naked puts. It is my belief that if you want to be successful as an options trader, you need to get successful at the fundamentals, which is what? Naked calls, naked puts. And people will say, well, you know what? And these are the guys that are selling these really complex option strategies. Well, you can't make a lot of money doing that. Well, that's incorrect because whales do naked calls and naked puts. If you look at a lot of the plays that SoftBank was making right after the COVID situation, they were doing massive buys of naked calls and naked puts on a lot of tech companies. Whales do naked calls and naked puts. Do whales also do really complex option strategies? Yeah, they do, but they also do naked calls and naked puts because they understand it's not the strategy, it's the trader. You got to understand that. It's not the strategy, it's the trader. And so what we really want to understand is that if you're not successful in the options market, it's not your strategy that's failing you. It's you that's failing you. It's not your strategy. It's not that you have the wrong strategy. It's you that's failing you because the fundamentals of this game is naked calls, naked puts. If you can't create any success with that, I don't understand how by becoming more complex, you're going to now create the success that you desire. So let's get into the second part of this. When you're implementing these really, really complex strategies, these guys that are promoting this to you. So when a guy's telling you that you should not be doing naked calls and naked puts, you shouldn't be quote unquote speculating, which everything is a speculation. So let's get into that real quick. Let's take the side path and we're going to get back on the main path in a second. If you buy real estate at a particular price, right, with the desire to sell that real estate at a later price for a higher price than what you bought it for, let's say you got to do some remodeling, but let's say you don't have to do any remodeling. Let's say you're just going to sit on it. That's speculation. You don't control the real estate market. How do you know the real estate market is going to go up? You're just doing an analysis based on your understanding of the market, based on what you think the macro and microeconomic trends are. You're buying the real estate at one price with the belief that you're going to sell it at a later price. So you're speculating. If you are a retailer and you go to a buyer and you buy 100 pounds of avocados because the Super Bowl is coming up and you believe that a lot of people are going to come into your store to buy avocados because of the Super Bowl, they're going to want to make guacamole dip. So you buy the 100 pounds of avocados with the belief that I can sell them at a higher price than what I bought them for because I'm going to get a Super Bowl rush. You know what you're doing? You're speculating. You're speculating because you don't know what people are going to do. You're just making an assumption, or you're doing some type of analysis, or you may have some data that showed over the past 4 or 5 years. We got an increase in traffic over the past 4 or 5 years. We have more avocado sales than normal because of the Super Bowl. But you're still speculating because you don't know what is going to happen. You can't predict the future. So you're speculating. Right? Let's say you buy a car and you're going to repair the car, do some detail work with the belief that you can sell it at a later price. You're speculating. You have no idea whether or not that's going to actually be true. You're confident that you can do it because you believe that you will know the market for this car, but it's no guarantee you can do it. It's a speculation. You're speculating on the future. You're speculating that the value of this car will be greater after I fix it up and do the detail work. So every investor in every market is speculating. Everyone. You buy stocks at a particular price because you believe in 10 years from now it's going to be at a higher price than it was when you bought it. You're speculating because you don't know what's going to happen. They could indict that CEO for embezzlement, for fraud, and you could lose your total investment. That's why they tell you if you invest in something, be prepared to lose all of it because you're speculating. You don't know what's going to happen in the future because if you did know the future, you could just play lotto. You would never have to play the markets. Just play lotto and win Powerball every week and just keep winning Powerball. That'd be easy. Pay a $2 ticket and win $400 million. And you would never need the stock market because you can predict the future. So you're speculating because you really don't know. So every investor is speculating just like every trader in every market, not just the options market, the commodities market, right? Every market, right, is speculating. Every retail buyer is speculating. They're buying something wholesale for the retail organization they're a part of because they believe that we can sell this particular retail item at a higher price. That's how we're going to make our profit, right? You're all speculating. You're all speculators, right? So this turning speculation into a pejorative is something that is really a form of dark persuasion that we probably may get into at a later date to make you feel like you're doing something that's incorrect while everybody is doing this because the markets are based on speculation. The markets aren't based on what people know what's going to happen unless you have control of the markets. And 99% of people in the world don't have the kind of influence and control over the financial markets. So then therefore, they're all speculating. They have a belief about the future and they're willing to risk capital on that belief in the future. So there is not a way to get out of the risk of an options trading by selling options because you believe that, well, I'm not speculating anymore. You're still speculating. Because if I'm selling you calls on Tesla at $800 to expire in a month, it's because I don't believe that Tesla is going to be $800 in a month. But Tesla could be $800 in a month because I can't predict the future. And then let's say Tesla in a month shoots up to $1,500, right? Because the FS, I forgot what you call it, the autonomous driving that they're going to release for Tesla comes out and it's a massive, massive hit. So Tesla goes from $600 something and in 30 days, it goes to, let's say, $1,500. But our sold calls are $800, right? Which means that either I got to release my Tesla shares and lose because I could hold them or sell them at $1,500, but now I got to sell them at $800, or I got to go out into the market and buy Tesla shares at market price, right? Or buy them while I see it moving up at the price it is at currently because I anticipate that I'm going to get exercised on that contract at the $1,500 mark as I see Tesla moving up. So I speculated that I can sell you this, right? Because Tesla's not going to move up and I'm just going to be able to keep the premium. But it's still speculation. It's still speculation because I wouldn't have sold you those contracts at that $800 strike price if I believed that Tesla was going up to $1,500 in 30 days. So there is no way to get out of this speculation, because if you're selling contracts to somebody, you're speculating, right, that the share price movement is not going to go against me and harm my position. Same thing if you're selling put contracts. You don't believe that the share price is going to go down and you believe that you're just going to keep the premium. But you still have to have an understanding of the market to do these things. So there is no safe way out of here where, here's a higher probability way to become successful. What you got to understand about a lot of these spreads is this. If you're doing naked calls and naked puts, and this is why I like to teach these as a fundamental thing, the only thing you're risking is the principal that you put in. If you lose the principal, you can lose 100%, but that's all you're going to lose. When you're involved in these spreads that involve you selling calls, right? Involve you selling puts. The problem is that you can get assigned. And so either you're going to have to take shares out of your account, you're going to have to buy shares, or the brokerage will come liquidate your account for what you owe. Now, they don't talk about this. If you look at these videos on YouTube, or if you're taking a course from somebody and they're telling you about selling contracts, if they're not walking through the part in which you have to manage this trade if something goes wrong, they're not giving you the total picture, right? They're not giving you the total picture. And you need the total picture so you don't get yourself in trouble. Because if all we're going to do is talk about the upside, but don't talk about how to manage the downside, we're not giving you a full comprehensive understanding of what's going on. But I'm going to repeat, your failure as a trader has nothing to do with the fact that you don't understand spreads. It got everything to do with you. And you need to really start examining, if I can't be successful at the fundamentals of the market, if I can't be successful at the fundamentals, why would I want to believe I can be successful at something more complex? Why would you want to believe that complexity is a solution to your problem if you're not successful at simplicity? Why would you want to believe that? And part of why you would want to believe that is because what you don't want to do is look at yourself. Because part of the socialization of being American is to believe that everything wrong with my life is because of this external reason. It's never me. Can't be me. I can't ever be the reason for what's going wrong with my life. So you bring that attitude into the market, and the market just continues to bleed money out of you. Why? Because they know that you've been taught this. So they know that you're going to have challenges as a trader, and you're going to look for an external reason instead of saying, you know what am I doing wrong? And where am I at with my fundamentals? Am I fundamentally sound? When I used to develop people in basketball, right? I used to do basketball coaching in a place called Temple Terrace, Florida, right? I used to coach kids. So a kid would be like, I want to learn how to handle the ball because they watching these pros do this stuff. I would teach them like 4 different dribbles. Teach them the V dribble. Some people call it the windshield washer, right? You can do that left to right. You can do that backwards forward. Teach you the pound dribble where you learn how to pound the ball into the ground as hard as you can. Teach you the typewriter where you dribble with the tips of your fingers. And then I would teach you what I would call like a zero dribble or an oval dribble where you dribble like in a zero or an oval. Teach those 4 dribbles, right? Why do I teach those 4 dribbles? Because if you learn those 4 dribbles, right? If you learn those 4, you can now figure out how to make your own moves up because you know the fundamentals of dribbling. If you learn how to pound the ball into the ground as hard as you can and still maintain your dribble, and you learn how to dribble with touch, you can just make up the rest of your dribble. So I'm teaching 4, but really you probably don't need to learn 2. But you got to get really, really good at those 2. Because when you get into situations where you got to get out of a situation with your handles, you're going to have to either pound the ball as hard as you can to get out of that situation and know that that ball is going to come back to your hand, or you're going to have to be able to dribble with a lot of touch and not be worrying about losing control of that ball because it's at the tips of your fingers. So then once you learn that, then you can now implement all these crazy moves that you see people doing. But see, what a lot of these kids learn how to do because they try to learn off YouTube is they try to learn the move. But this is what I want you to understand. The professional athlete that's doing the move, right? The professional athlete that made up this dribble move that you're trying to copy, they didn't copy that move from somebody else. That's their move. So how did they learn that move? They learned the fundamentals. So when you look at Chris Paul handling the ball, he learned the fundamentals. He didn't try to copy John Stockton's move, or he didn't try to copy Isaiah Thomas's move. He learned how to handle and then made his own dribble moves, right? He created his own way of handling the ball. He one of the best ball handlers ever. If you look at Jason Williams, people used to call him white chocolate. The guy played ball in the 90s for a lot of y'all that might be too young to remember this. He talked about how he would go into the gym and practice just dribbling, right, for 3 or 4 hours in a row. And just dribble, just do all kind of crazy, whatever he could think of, he would do. That's why his handles became so good like that. he wasn't practicing specific moves. He was working on the fundamentals, right? And that's why when he played ball, that ball just stays stuck to his hand. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? You got to learn the fundamentals in things. And then once you learn the fundamentals, right, then you start to become more complex. But you'll find that once you learn the fundamentals, the complexity and the sophistication will come to you because you're fundamentally sound. So if you really want to learn how to handle the ball, you don't go learn the most complicated ball handling drills. You learn the fundamentals of learning how to handle the ball. And once you get really good with those fundamentals, you'll start creating your own complexity in the way you handle the ball. And you'll understand that the complexity is really based on the situation. It's not just something you do coming up the court, right? The best ball handlers, until they get put into a bad situation, their handles are very, very basic. It's when they get put into a tight situation is when you start seeing the complexity and what they know how to do with the ball. But if there's no pressure on them and they just walking up the court, they just dribbling. It's when you try to trap them, right? When you come up off that screen real high and they got to get around that, is when you start to realize how really well they can really handle that ball and how they got that ball on the string. And it doesn't matter what they do with the ball stays right with them. Jason Kidd was another guy who had that same ability. You understand me? So we're going to refer that back to options trading. I really think it would benefit a lot of people that are not successful as options traders to really understand the fundamentals. Naked calls, naked puts. If those aren't working for you, how come they're not working for you? If you can't buy a call based on movement in the market and become successful at that, or buy a put based on movement in the market and become successful at that, why do you think now by selling against your position in the market, right, you're going to become successful? Because you still need the movement in the market to become successful. So why do you think by adding more complexity to your scenario, you all of a sudden now become more successful? Just ask yourself that. You're not successful at the fundamentals, but I'm going to become more complex and now I'm going to become more successful. I don't understand that. So that's like the person that says, I can't do any basic ball handling. I can't walk up the court and look up the court and handle the ball without looking down at the ball. Right? But I want to learn how to do an Allen Iverson crossover. You can't do the basics. So now you're going to struggle learning how to do a very, very complex move, right? That involves a lot of timing and footwork. But you can't do the basics, which is walk up the court, look up the court, and dribble without looking down at the ball. Right? When I came up, we was dribbling with our eyes closed because it was that important that you have to be able to dribble off rhythm and touch instead of looking at the ball. So we literally would dribble in place with our eyes closed. They now say you these blinders that you put on the eyes. You don't need those blinders. Just close your eyes. If you know where the ball is going, you don't ever have to look at the ball. Why? Because I know where it's going. Why? Because I've worked on the basics enough to where I know if I bounce the ball at this spot, I know where the ball is going based on the sound of the ball. That's something a lot of y'all's going to go over a lot of people's head that ain't really play ball like that. I know where the ball is going based on the sound of the ball when I bounce it at a particular spot, right? Then you learn about rhythm. Another drill I used to do is I would tell them to listen to music, and it's easy now because everybody got mobile music. You got your little pods in your ear. Whatever music you like to listen to, learn how to dribble to the rhythm of that ball. Dribble to the rhythm of the music and make your handles match the rhythm. Then when you get into the game, all you do is replay that song back to yourself. And nothing fancy. Learn how to dribble to the rhythm. So you got to understand is that in the options market, the fundamentals are going to be what's going to carry you through. It's going to be these real fundamental boring stuff is what's going to carry you. Then if you decide to become more complex, you become more complex. So the reason why I do the same thing in every scenario, when I taught people basketball, I taught them the fundamentals. When I taught people marketing, I taught them the fundamentals. When I'm teaching people options trading, I teach them the fundamentals. It's because I understand that's what's going to carry you. And when you get in trouble, that's what you're going to always have to recenter and refocus back on to try to build your situation back up is the fundamentals, right? So if you're in the options market and you're not successful, right? I want to try to, I would say, counsel you or encourage you to not get distracted by the latest trick or the latest option strategy that some guys on YouTube is telling you that there's a predictable way to make income, or it doesn't make sense to speculate by buying naked calls and naked puts. In reality, all investing, all market-based activity is in reality really speculating based on the definition of speculating. Stop looking for these external solutions and start understanding what is going on inside my mind that is not allowing me to become successful. What is going on with my behavior that is not allowing me to become successful in what I'm trying to do? And really start to focus on that and start focusing on the fundamental areas that you need to be good at. And then once you get successful in those fundamental areas, build up. If you want to learn more about the highest paid part-time job in the world options trading program, reach out to me. I'm available via social media. If you know somebody that can get value from this, share it out. Hit me up in the comments. This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, and I'll talk to you later.